Exactly. So I want to have you, because I know that about you, but I feel like some people might. So talk a little bit about that.
You know, my parents came here as like refugees, and you know, they sacrificed so much. They came to this country, they didn't have any family. They had like, you know, $12 in their pockets. My father would go to Toastmaster class to get rid of his accent. You know, a recruiter told him to change his name from like Mukund to Mike so he could like get a job. And so there was a lot of this sense of that we've sacrificed everything to come here. This is an amazing country.
Right.
Like, you need to do everything you can to like get the American dream. And you know, when you grow up a lot in that culture, it's like you stop thinking about what you want, and everything is about making your parents happy, making their sacrifice really worth it. And so every decision I made was in furtherance of that goal.
Right.
And for me too, and so a lot of, you know, both my parents were, you know, working class. And I remember when I got my first paycheck at Davis Polk & Wardwell, when you're a summer associate at a law firm, it's like a lot of money over the summer, right? And I remember like, I was like, my dad like framed that check, because it was like they had never, this was what it was, right? This is what all of their sacrifices, yes, they probably had all my pay stubs, not even back then. And so I kept thinking about like what that meant for them, given how much that they had sacrificed. And so I kept putting my own unhappiness and like soul crushing job, you know, I kept doing it, and I couldn't do it anymore at a certain point.
Well, it's also this thing where it's brave to do what your heart wants to do, and not what the world tells you to do.
1000%. I mean, I think it's brave. It's brave to leave that job that you're like meh about, but you're just, and so many of us as women, like, we stay in things that we're good at, and not in things that we want to be at.
Do you think bravery, you know, the act of being brave, and I know the answer, but I want to hear it, like, do you think you're born with it, or you can really work at it like a muscle?
No. And I think we have to stop with our girls being like, oh yeah, she's brave. Like, she's 3.
Right.
You know what I mean? As if like you were born that way or not born that way, and then you can't actually be brave or strong or have resilience because you're just not like that.
Right.
And we have to stop saying that, because I do feel like we often say that as we like determine our children's fate at like 3.
Right.
And no, I think you build I think bravery is a muscle that you are constantly exercising and working on. And we have, you know, as part of this book, you know, we're going to be rolling out this idea of like bravery challenges. So like, you know, once a week, so a couple of ideas, you know, practice imperfection. It is a practice to be imperfect. It is a practice to post that first selfie of yourself that you don't look that great about, right? It is a practice to like, you know, I fly a lot, right? So and I feel better when I have a blowout. And so I'll go to the airport with like curlers in my head, and people will look at me like, really? And I'm like, yeah, like I'm a working mom, and I don't bake cookies. I buy store-bought cookies, and I put a lot of pressure on myself, right? To like, instead of just going to Whole Foods, you know, like baking, and I can't even cook. So like, what's the point? So like, I think practicing imperfection is really, really important.
That's great. And I also have this note, like, I love this idea that this is a muscle that you can build, and it's not something you're born with. Of course, people have different DNA structures, and you're clearly, I mean, your parents now must be so proud of you, but it was brave of you to chart your own path and run for office and lose and come back and do your business. But I love this idea that it's a muscle, and it's not something, and we can all build it. So besides practicing imperfection, tell us like what we can do to build this muscle of bravery. Well, is it just like don't look at other people's Instagrams because you're gonna feel shitty about yourself?
That might be it too. But I mean, I think it's also like I think you can't be brave if you're tired. You know, and so the idea of rest, the idea of exercise, the idea of meditation. You know, we put ourselves last. All of us probably have a doctor's appointment that we should have scheduled that we haven't done yet.
Every single one,
Every single one of us, right?
Yeah.
And you can't be brave if you're tired. The other thing I've been thinking a lot about,
I love that.
you know, is this idea of like doing something you suck at. So every man I know has something. Like for my husband, it's tennis or golf or fantasy football or like basketball. Like President Obama, he sucks at basketball, but he just likes it, so he plays.
He sucks. He looks so good.
I know, because he feels like he's good, right?
Brad, he looks good. So he's like, yeah, I can do anything.
Like so many of us, right? We won't even go to an exercise class till we're fit. Or we judge ourselves. We're in that spinning class or that yoga class or whatever that thing is. And we're so mad at ourselves that we're not good at it, that we're just not even enjoying it.
Yeah.
And so I've made myself like go to yoga class, right? I can't do a headstand to like change my life, right?
Yeah.
Like I can barely do a child's pose, but like I like that shavasana. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm here. Like I'm here for shavasana, right? Like
Yeah.
and I stopped judging myself. And so this idea of like practicing being mediocre. And
Right.
it's something that men have been doing for a very long time.
But they don't know they're mediocre at it, right?
Sometimes they do, right? And they're like, oh
It
my
doesn't
God.
matter.
It doesn't matter,
Right.
They're not even thinking that way. Whereas
Right.
we're all the way in our heads and in judgment and in frustration because it's not coming easy
Right.
to us.
Or at least like having hobbies. Like how many
Yeah.
do I
Do you have
it's
a
like-
hobby? I don't know, right?
I mean, I used to have so many hobbies, and then now it's like you have kids
Yeah.
and you have work, and it's like,
Well, the mom guilt's a whole other thing,
Right,
right?
right.
And so how do you, because I think so much of perfectionism goes in the mom guilt. It's so funny, I have just been on this crazy, like, 3 speeches a day, 7 cities, right?
wow.
I'm traveling with my 4-year-old because I also feel guilty
Yeah, exactly.
to be away from him. So I torture myself by bringing him.
Yeah, Sean, right?
Sean.
Yeah.
And
He's
like
adorable.
it's last Monday I'm 2 speeches in, actually 2 speeches in for that day. We get on the plane. Bonus, we get one of us gets upgraded, right? So there's
Yeah.
3 of us. Clearly I should have been like, it's me, but I'm like to my husband, no honey, you go sit in the front. I'll just go in the back and torture myself with my son, right? And part
Right.
of this is like I wanted to feel like a good mom.
Yes, and it's kind
And
of
we
like
martyr
I have to
ourselves.
be a martyr.
I
Exactly.
have to be a martyr.
Exactly.
That goes back to the perfectionism
Right.
piece,
Right.
right? It was actually the braver choice
Right.
to be like, see ya guys, like I'm going to the front of the
Or
bus.
when dads are watching the kids, I don't know if you notice this, and
Yeah.
it's like, did you see? Oh my God, they're such great dads.
Yeah.
It's like, did you see those 2 guys at lunch with their kids? They are just the best fathers. It's like, dude, like this is our lives. Like they
It's our
shouldn't
lives.
get, you see that all the time
all the time.
still.
All the time.
It's so crazy. We were just on vacation. We saw
Yeah.
the dads, and it was this big thing. Like, oh my God, the dads with the kids. I was like, this
Yeah.
isn't a bigot. Like, this is life. Like,
Right. But Michelle, it's so interesting to think about. Like, I just don't believe that it's biological. I don't believe that there's
Interesting.
nothing my husband doesn't do for himself. There are 100 things that I don't do for myself on a weekly basis because I feel too damn guilty.
Wow.
And I don't think that that is biological. I think that's about perfectionism.
Right.
I think that there's a sense that I have to have it all together and I have to make it seem like it's that way even though it's killing me. And he just doesn't feel, men just don't feel that way.
And I do think that is, when you study kids before the gender thing hits, we both have kids like the
Yeah.
same age, and it happens at this time, and it's like, you can see it happening, and you
Yeah.
can see, they're going their own, and I feel like most of it is probably not biological.
Yeah.
And
It's learned.
It's learned
It's
behavior, and it keeps getting worse. It goes on and on and on. And everyone here that's a girl, I'm sure, and the guys, you're in 5th grade, and it's like, of course every guy got a C, and you were doing all the homework. And now I see all those guys, and they're like doctors. I'm like, how did you get through med school? You
Right.
copied off me the
Right.
entire time,
Right.
And I think it's also interesting because we both have boys.
Yeah.
And yet you focus your organization, Girls Who Code, on girls.
Yeah, and I still get so angry when people are like, well, what about the boys?
Right, okay,
And
so
I'm
let's
like, well,
talk
what
about
about them?
Right.
You know?
But at the dinner it came up that, boys maybe should be allowed to be more feminine in certain ways.
Yeah, look.
Like they should be allowed to have, a lot of times maybe they don't have the same abilities to show their sensitive sides.
For sure. Like my husband and I got in a fight about like a nightlight, and my son wanted a nightlight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I
my
remember the
son
story,
wanted
yeah.
a nightlight, and I went to buy my baby, bought the nightlight. We bring Sean upstairs, and plug in the nightlight, and go to my room. 5 minutes later, my husband will come upstairs, pull out the nightlight. Sean would
Right.
scream. We would do this dance, and I'm like, dude, what is your problem? Like, he wants the nightlight. And my feminist husband was like, well, no, we gotta toughen him up. And
We have to toughen him up. Right.
And I said, well, if Sean was a girl, would you let him have a nightlight? And he thought about it, and he was like, oh, I would. And so,
And that right there
and
is
it's
the
huge.
crux, yeah.
Like my son's a little Gandhi. He is just
so
sweet, and he is just, and I know, and I'm worried, like, someone is going to buoy that out of him, right? Because they're going to think that he's not supposed to be sweet and kind and generous and soft. And we do this to our boys too. You know, we do the opposite to our boys.
Right.
And someone's, this guy Brian, a lot of men have been reading this book and sending me this kind of really rich thoughts about this. And, you know, this guy Brian sent me a note saying, you know, I'm a perfectionist too. But I feel like for me it shows up in the subconscious. So my wife can come home and be like, oh my God, is my butt big? Right?
Right.
But does Sally, no, Sally just doesn't like me. But I can't come home and be like, dude, Jeff's mad at me. Mm-hmm. And the way that it shows up for me is not externally, but internally. I start grinding my teeth.
Right.
Like I have these other habits that are deep into the subconscious that I also take with me because I do also maybe care what people think about me, and I do engage in toxic people pleasing, and I do, you know, try to like read my email 1,000 times over with 9 emojis, like, and so it's complicated. Right. But I think for women it shows up just a lot more, and there's a culture that's pressed upon us to be that way. Mm-hmm. I mean, we see this with our girl Hillary, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, what better example of perfectionism gone awry, right? I always say, like, Coach Buck has this line, like, in the real world, I mean, Coach Buck has this line that, like, if life were one long grade school, girls would rule the world.
Totally.
But in the real world, it's bravery. And that never played out more intensely than in the presidential election. Right. Where here she was, the most qualified, A+, right? Been working for that, her butt off for that job. This guy comes in, F+ at best, and he gets the job.
It's almost like we hate the woman, perfectionist woman, but we're also we're telling you have to be perfect, but then we also hate it when you're perfect. You need to also be flawed. You have to, you know, it's so hard being human. Right? It's like all this stuff, but I'm really into this thing that you can flex your bravery muscle. And I feel like you probably did that during the discovery of this book when you were writing it, but were there any other things that were surprising to you while you were writing this book, or that you kind of discovered along the way? Because I feel like you have a lot of stories to tell. Was there anything that surprised you?
I think the thing is that I think bravery is not one and done. You're not like, okay, I did this courageous thing, I stood up for myself, and now I'm brave forever. Like, you fall on and off the wagon. You have to work at it. It's kind of like dieting or whatever that process is for you. And, you know, courage is hard. Like, I'm in the middle of a Twitter fight with 60 Minutes underneath anything.
I saw that. I wanted to bring that up, but I didn't know if it was like kosher to bring up during this.
And the thing is that, like, you know, when we were going to write the Medium post, like, I was sick all day. I wasn't like, yay, let's go fight the most powerful media institution in the world. Like, it doesn't always feel good. It's scary.
Why don't you give a little background for people that don't know about this?
Okay, so, you want me to tell you the whole story? Okay, fine, this will be fun.
You're a fast talker.
I'll tell you the whole story. Basically, I'm obsessed with 60 Minutes. I watch it religiously. We all are. We love that institution. I had remembered a segment that Leslie Stahl had done in the 80s, I think, about women in science. And I happened in, I think 2015, 2014, to be on a panel with her. And I was like, oh my God, now's my chance to get her to do a segment on girls and coding, because it reminded me of the segment that she had done about women in science. I approached her, I'm like, can I have coffee? I want to pitch you an idea. She emails me back and says yes. We meet for a coffee. I tell her the whole thing. She's like, that's really interesting. Like, there's something there. Send me a pitch. Send her a pitch, or a conversation with her. This is 4 years ago, right? Send her a pitch, and it doesn't go anywhere. But every 3 months, religiously, our communications team would update 60 Minutes and the producers about what's happening, the progress that we're making, the work that we're doing, in hopes that one day they would basically do this segment that I wanted millions of girls to watch and then change their mind. A year ago, we get an email, 60 Minutes producer. We're considering doing this episode about girls and coding. Different producer, not Leslie. We love her. We're doing an episode. We're doing a thing about girls and coding. People have told us that you're somebody that your organization that we should talk to. I was like, amazing. get on the phone with them, and it is very clear that they are not going to do a segment about women's organizations and coding, that they are going to do a segment about Code.org, which is run by a guy whose mission is not to close the gender gap, but is to just teach all kids to code. So I'm like, oh no, right? And so we proceed to kind of proceed to kind of go back and forth with them a bit and say, listen, you know what, I don't need to do a story, but like you need to at least go film our girls. You need to see what's happening. They finally agree. They go to this amazing school in Queens, Title I school, 3rd to 5th grade club. These girls are just all girls of color, and also all like backgrounds. So you have girls that have special needs, and other girls teaching those girls how to. I mean, it was just magical, like this magical. Like you couldn't watch that and not just have tears in your eyes and just be like, this is it, this is it. They filmed the whole thing. This principal there, she's just amazing, right? So we're like, okay, this is awesome. Wednesday, Tanya, who runs our comms, gets an email from the female producer, right, saying, sorry, you've been cut. You guys have been cut from the story. And we're like, you can't cut those girls, so you can't do that. Back and forth about the reasoning why, right? So everyone knows this was not an oversight. This was intentional. Mm-hmm. And I'm just pissed. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna watch the segment because maybe they'll mention NC Wit, Black Girls Book, Girls Develop It, the hundreds and hundreds of women who had done this. And I had heard that my friend Aya Badir that was going to be in the segment, and I thought, all right, maybe they'll give Aya some prime time. No, segment starts with the man, Hadi Petrovi, who this is not his issue, it's not his passion, right? Starting the sentence by being like, other organizations in this space have failed. So he critiques all because they've started too late in the pipeline, but I, Savior, am solving this problem. And it's all about him. And Aya's not even in the segment. And I'm like, no freaking way.
So what'd you do?
So I write a Medium post that, well, I should say, my amazing, no, you get credit, girl, because she is an incredible writer, writes this powerful post, and we are like, this is the problem. Like, for years, for decades, men have been washing us out of history in every space as if our contributions don't matter. And they rewrite it. And it's not true. And these elite institutions that have so much power, so much opportunity to just tell the truth, don't. So I read this post and I'm like, you know what? Maybe people will see it, maybe people won't see it. But
and it went off and it
blows up.
And that is what I love about the
power
time
of the sisterhood. The power of
that.
the sisterhood.
Because I was in, chains of emails, and of course I know Reshma, I didn't hear from her, share this post, do this. I love that we live in a time where we can amplify voices and put it on media and take on CNN, and that is brave.
Yeah.
And that
60 minutes.
60 minutes. That is brave. And that is something that you can do. And I feel like you can just be, little old you, although you're not little old you.
No, but it is.
And take them on and call them out for it and hopefully affect change.
Yes.
And I thought that was really cool.
Yes.
I want to open up the floor to questions. I want to tell one story though, because I just thought of this. So I'm seeing these Brave Not Perfect sweaters, which if you buy them, all the proceeds go to Girls Who Code. So please pick one up and you can custom yours in the back. When we started sewing, I never thought of having a business, and I always say when we teach people to sew, remember the Navajo Indians? They used to sew all these rugs by hand, and they had a lesson that they would say and it was this. They never if they made a mistake, they never took it out. They never corrected it. Because they said every single human is imperfect. Nobody is perfect. Only the higher being is perfect. And I've always loved that, and I've always tried to make our embroiderers mess up their sweaters so that they look imperfect. And what I'm just realizing is I love this line so much because nobody's perfect, but we all can be brave. And I feel like just being yourself is so brave, and doing what your heart is telling you is so brave, which is what you do daily, but it is a muscle. So it's like, if you haven't been that brave or you don't feel brave, you can flex it and you can work on it.
And it's scary, and
you
that's
gotta
okay.
buy the book and get some lessons.
Definitely.
So who has questions for Reshma? Great looking group. I love this group. Anybody? Yeah.
Hi, first of all, thanks for being here.
Oh,
So you mentioned that when you emailed CBS that they had given you a lot of reasoning. Out of curiosity, what was the reasoning for cutting women's organizations
It's a
out?
great
What's sort of the
question.
latest with the back and forth you guys are having?
I mean, it just doesn't fit the storyline.
Oh,
You pivoted.
We
What does that
pivoted.
even mean?
They told Aya she was a casualty.
Yes,
Um,
I told Aya she was a casualty.
I don't think, here's the crazy thing, I don't think they expected this.
mm-hmm.
I actually think that they thought it was okay on the weekend of Women's History Month,
First segment. The
First segment.
was this-
to have no women and for a man to tell us what we should be doing for girls in coding. I don't think they expected this. I don't think it was
That's the
intentional or an oversight.
That is so sad
That's-
because it's
yes,
like you
it's
think
so
Me
sad.
Too has like brought us to a different place. And even like I was watching the Michael Jackson
Yeah.
documentary last night. Oh, has anyone seen it? And I thought, that wouldn't happen nowadays because of Me Too. And now we're all so woke and it's like, hello,
No.
we're not.
There's also something really interesting, and I'm calling it here. And I would love for Allison or Rebecca Treister, amazing writers, to write about this. There's something really cynical happening. So it used to be that men were not letting us in their club. Now they want to be president of our club, right? Now Boy Scouts is like, oh no, we're letting girls in. Now Google's giving pay equity to men. Now most corporations have banned their women's affinity groups to include men.
Like a wing, that just happened.
Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
it's great. It's really, really crazy to think about like what is happening in this moment. Where again, and the crazy thing about Hadi is he thought it was okay. He hasn't apologized. He hasn't said, or let me see this. He thinks that it's perfectly normal for a dude to take that place.
Wouldn't it be nice to hear an apology from any of the men? I'm just like, we could all move on.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
I messed up.
It's
I'm
not.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
But
No,
not
but
even
it
an
is just-
apology, but like it would have been nice if Hadi said, you're right, like you should have showcased some of my peers, and I'm
Yeah.
surprised he hasn't expressed
Double
his-
down.
Yeah, because I
Double
think a
down.
lot of people are like, where do we go now? We have all these Me Too cases, and how do we move beyond them? And it's like, well, guess what, guys? Give a genuine apology, and
Yeah.
then start being more inclusive and start
Yeah.
changing behavior, and we'll be done.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
step aside.
Step
And
aside.
step aside, and it's okay. It's
Step
and
aside.
acknowledge your unearned privilege as a man.
Right.
And like most men, I mean, look, 40% of girls who code teachers are men. Like men are so central to like our bravery movement. I am married to an incredible human being who every day pushes me forward. There's a lot of good ones out there, and I don't think that Hadi and Rome Hartzman, the producer of 60 Minutes, in many ways are just a reflection of. They're not a reflection of the time, and I think it's just incredibly disappointing.
Because
That
they're not bad people.
I mean, look, no,
They're
I think
naive, or
men,
what is
I think that we have to have an honest conversation that like it is not easy to give up power, and I think they're struggling to give up power, and I think in this Trump era, it seems like he's made it okay to now start claiming our spaces, and we have to fight back about this. And to acknowledge it and to call it for what it is, because it's going to get worse. I mean, I was really shocked at last year when I would go speak at Women's History Month to many corporations, it was a dude interviewing me
Yeah.
because they wanted to make them feel included.
Oh God.
Right? It's really, this is like a real thing that's like happening. And so it's like we need to speak to that.
Right. And the subtleties too, I feel like we need to speak to. You go to a meeting and it's all men and the women, and it's like, the woman knows her shit and she might say something, and it's always the men who, like, you know what I
Men
mean?
speak 70% of the time in meetings.
That's what we talked about at
Yeah.
this dinner.
Yeah.
I'm sure the statistics for I'm sure you have so many,
Yeah.
but it's frightening, and I feel like it's not even the big things, it's the little things
It's totally
that we
the
have
little
to
things.
call out. Okay, more questions. Yeah.
So
Sort of our alumni.
Oh, amazing.
So, in addition to the perfection syndrome that girls suffer from, we also suffer from imposter syndrome. So I was wondering if you have any advice towards that.
So imposter syndrome, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want to speak
Yeah,
on
no,
that?
it's so true. I think that, and that starts showing up, you know, around 8 years old, right? When we start, and it's about the time when girls start getting tested, and you basically you start like, like you essentially start like, you know, like comparing yourself, maybe I'll use that word, to others. And I think that that is something that we as also mothers,
Which
like
never
our
ends.
daughters have to, are watching us basically do that.
Yeah.
The thing is that I think that you and we have to learn how to like be okay exercising something that you're passionate about that you may not be an expert on. I mean, I don't code. I don't freaking code. I did not code. Now I've learned, but I didn't code. And I could have every day walked into a room like this and felt like an imposter. Every time I walked into a classroom, every time I stood in front of a television camera, because I didn't have the expertise about the movement that I was building. And I think the thing is we have to lead from our passion and not our experience. And so, and people will always make you feel like you are not good enough. And so much of the challenge, I think, imposter syndrome is ourselves, and to tell ourselves every day, you are worthy, you are good enough, you are, you know, you are worthy. And that's why I think sisterhood and community is so important, because oftentimes we are our worst enemies.
Yeah.
And I've been, this book really opened my mind up to that, is like, why are we so mean to each other, right? Why do we as women engage, basically light that fire on that imposter syndrome? And I think so much of it has to do with the fact that there are things that all of us wanted to do or not wanted to. Maybe you wanted to start a company that you never did. Maybe you didn't want to have that second kid and you had it anyway, right? And then you're left, you like basically let your good ideas die in the vine. And then you see someone else doing the very thing that you told yourself you couldn't do. And you are left feeling regret and envy. And it eats you up inside. So then you go after each other, right? I ran twice, I lost twice, but I have so much joy when I see these incredible women in Congress, because at least I tried. But listen, if I never ran, I wouldn't even be able to watch CNN. I wouldn't be able to march. I wouldn't be able to do those things, because I would have felt like, well, why her, not me? And so I think we gotta, I tell women all the time, like, go to where your envy is. Go to where your regret and envy is, and that's where you need to be. That's where you need to sit.
I like that. I feel like all of us are like, that's like an Oprah moment, because I feel like everybody has those moments.
Everybody has it.
And it's so easy now. I'm an Instagram love.
Oh my God.
It is so easy to just see these lives and say, oh, what am I, you know, I gotta do that.
Why
you
is
know?
she selling 1 million sweaters? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the thing is that we live,
Yeah.
but we often live these very fake lives online.
Yeah.
Everything from the way that we look, from like, you know, it's, and I started doing these Failure Fridays on Friday to just speak it real, but like, there's like it's like negativity shaming on Instagram, like you're supposed to do that on Facebook.
Yeah.
And it's like it's gotta end. We have to be really honest, and I think it's so much worse if you are young.
I can't, can you imagine?
No.
I can't imagine raising girls in this environment where social media exists. I just can't. And it's scary.
No, it's really scary.
And I think it's brave to also just put down your phone and not engage. Sometimes I'm like, you know, I don't have to be at every march. I don't have, I think this thing of self-care, like you can't be brave if you're tired. You can't do anything well if you're tired or sick. So it's like that thing first, I think we beat ourselves up like, oh my God, they're all there and I'm not there.
Yeah, what does that say about me?
Yeah, and am I losing credit? Like, what's going? And that is just crazy. And I don't think. I'm sure, like, there are men that do that, but I feel like men aren't like that. Men aren't like at home, like, oh my God, is he hanging out with him right now? And like, I've never seen my husband. My husband's like, I'm going to bed. What are you doing? Okay. Anyway, so women are kind of crazy, and it is probably. It's at 8 years old. We're comparing ourselves, you know, and it doesn't stop. And I think it's good to identify that as adult women. In the back.
Hi. So you mentioned that it was a female producer who cut your segment.
No.
Say that.
There was a lead male producer.
Oh, okay.
And
No, I was actually wondering that too, though.
yeah.
because
Rome Hartzman, feel free to tweet at him.
I was gonna ask if it was that's a good question. I was gonna ask if it was a male producer or not. So it was a male producer. And so are we still in are we still in the Twitter battle with CBS?
Are we still in the Twitter battle with CBS?
All right, so everybody get involved in this Twitter battle. Who else? Yeah.
So I absolutely loved your book. I loved how it was so action oriented. So I feel like I have a lot of tools in order to go and be more brave.
Yeah.
But the issue is kind of that in actually changing the dynamic. So if you, in the situation with your husband and actually giving up your seat, how do you all of a sudden stop doing that and sort of be more brave and being like, I own this? So I kind of like, instead of just, it being at a starting point where you can say, I'm brave, how do you change it?
I think you get to fall in and off the wagon, right? So midway through the flight, I was like, dude, let's switch.
Okay.
Or not even let's switch, we're switching, right? And so I think that I'm so much more conscious of it.
Okay.
And then afterwards, the next day I'm like, why did I do that? Like, what was I trying to prove to myself in doing that? And I think oftentimes this book hopefully will help you go in, right? Like, and go in and try to understand, because this is decades of training. And the thing is like, thinking a lot about this book has also made me think about my relationship with my mother, right? It's oftentimes our moms are the ones that are like, stand up straight. Did you gain 10 pounds? Oh, you're not gonna get that job, honey. Whereas your dads are like, go for it, right? Like my father's like, yes, send another mean tweet, right? Like, and but my mother's like, you're drawing attention to yourself. And so this perfectionism is perpetuated generation after generation after generation after generation. And so it's not an easy thing to just start and stop.
Yeah.
Like it is a practice that you have to be on, a journey that you have to be on. And I think that the more you start being in the moment, so like I'll give you an example. I bring my kid everywhere. Normally he's like here, he's not here today, but normally he's here, right? And so that, because and Allison, I feel like we've talked about this, I felt like when I was a mom, when I had a child, even from like breastfeeding on, I had to walk out of the room all the time, right? I had to go take my motherhood over there and not disturb anybody else. And I started feeling very resentful. And so my solution to that was just to bring him, you know what I mean, with me everywhere. And if, he's yelling or screaming or crying, like, so be it, we're all experiencing this together. And so I got good about it. And this one time, my husband was getting an award. We were at the Penn Club, and, there's this whole talk, and Sean and I are in the back listening. He's giggling about something. And this woman turned around, and she said, can you take him outside? And my gut reaction was, I picked him up, and I walked outside.
I would have been like,
I said, I'm sorry. Right. No, I did. I said,
And that's
I'm
what
sorry.
women are always
I'm
apologizing.
sorry. And I took my son and I walked outside. And then I sat there eating hummus, just pissed. Right? Why did I go outside? Why did I go outside? Why did I go outside? Why is my son missing? And I'm like sweating and I'm just angry. And the thing is over, and I walk back inside and I go straight to her and I tap her and I'm like, listen, that was not cool. And we have this conversation. And I confronted her. But what
did she say?
And she was like, oh, I'm sorry. I think she was shocked that I confronted her.
Right.
But what I would have done, pre-Brave Not Perfect Reshma, is I would have gone home and I would have sat with it and I would have bitched about it and I would have felt with it and I would have had 9 different comebacks and I would have been mad at myself. But then I just confronted her and then I was done. And I was happy. It's over. It is over. I feel like I educated her. I stuck up for myself and like it was great.
Well, I think changing the status quo too of, why can't our boys see us working? I mean, I think that's like part of what changing the world is just doing it and leading by example.
Right.
Having your son see you lead a room of people is probably like, I don't even know, so much more impactful than sending him to a school about this. So I feel like you have to change the status quo. I like that sorry thing too. I mean, I am so
all the time.
And I'm like, why am I apologizing?
And people are.
This isn't me, it's them.
But not only that, it's also people. Like, I've literally had dinner on the streets of Chelsea where people were having with my son and he's laughing and people are mad at me that I brought my son to dinner. It's because as women, are not supposed to ruin anybody's time. Right? We're supposed to know that we're supposed to put other people first before us. for sure, if it was my husband and Sean, nobody would say anything
They would
to
have been
him.
like, that guy, oh my
Oh,
God, look
how
at that
amazing you're feeding him.
Yeah, look at that amazing father.
Right.
And oh no, the boy's crying, poor guy.
It's totally different.
Do we have any questions? Yeah.
So the book is amazing. Everyone should buy it. It's just like such an incredible resource filled with knowledge, and I love it. And I something I know about Reshma, she's kind of the first person who really taught me to like look like to when you hear the word no, to just not listen to it, to just push right past no. And I know it can be exhausting to continue to be brave and to continue to not hear no. And I look to you for that. And so I want to know who do you look to for that to kind of recharge your bravery?
What a great question.
Oh God. I feel like the most amount of bravery that I have seen are with my students. You know, I have so many girls that come to our program that have eaten one meal a day. You know, taking like 2 buses to basically go learn, or they're the ones that their families are depending on. And they face so much bullshit, right, on a day in, day out basis, and they're not giving up. And like, I think that, especially in this world right now, I think that that's tremendous. And I feel like that's always where I go to and get recharged and get charged up, is them.
Cool. Do we have any? Yeah.
Thanks so much for your book. I did something super scary because of it.
Oh, good. Tell me.
I pitched an idea that I wasn't ready to pitch because I had a deadline.
Don't you love hearing that?
But as a follow-up, can you talk a little bit about bravery fatigue? Because I literally built up all this anxiety the whole day, and then I was exhausted the rest of the week because I did that thing. And does it go away once you get better at it, or you know?
Listen, I'm in bravery fatigue right now. I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted of fighting. It's exhausting. It's exhausting to keep fighting. And so I think that there are some times where I don't pick every fight. I don't stand up for myself every single time. You know, I don't do what I want to do every single time. I think that what to me is important is the consciousness of it. Even if you don't act on it, is recognizing that, like, you know, I want to make the braver choice every single time, but sometimes, like, I need to sleep, you know, or I need to rest, and I'm gonna not pick but I'm gonna be conscious of myself about it. And I think that we lose some of that. Like, we put it in another drawer, and then it starts eating us up inside. I think when we think about how much a lot of us have friends that are really have a lot of anxiety, right? And depression, and just the sense of like, is this it? And I think a lot of that is coming from is like, we're basically closeting our dreams because we've told ourselves that we can't do them. And it's sitting in our stomachs, and it's eating at us. So to me, I think a lot of that is just consciousness. So like, I know, you know, for me, I know that that if I am 80 years old and I don't serve, even if it's for my community board, like dog catcher, something, that if I don't do that, then I will probably have regret. And so I have to check myself. That doesn't mean I gotta run for office tomorrow, right? But I have to check myself on my temperature of like, if I'm not doing it, why aren't you doing it, right? And so I think just being very clear with yourself about what it is that you really deep down inside, what's your ledge, I call it, you know, and then your drama wisdom test, like, okay, am I telling myself not to do it because I'm scared, or I'm tired, or is it just not the moment for me right now? I don't need to take that on. I think it's really important.
And I thought you said surf at first. I thought you said that if you're 80 and you haven't surfed yet.
Surf.
So
that too, though.
I
Surfing
feel like
too.
you should, I surfed for the first time last summer, and that was my moment.
Me too. Last summer.
Really?
Yeah.
We're on the same way.
Yeah.
That was my moment of like, and I sucked, and I will always suck at it, and that's okay.
But didn't it feel good?
Oh my God, I felt like a child.
Yeah,
I walked and I felt like a child.
That's exactly
like
what
I
it is.
Did it?
And has anyone felt that way about something recently?
Yeah.
No hands are raised. Some hands are nodding, but most of us. But my point is
I'm terrified of water.
Right.
So that
Me
you
too.
had to
I can't
know.
swim.
And so it was.
But I want you all
You
to
know?
find that that childlike
Yeah,
feeling.
it's so
Remember that
great.
time when you're riding a bike and the wind is in your hair and it's like,
You did
like
it, yeah.
you can feel that way again at like, I'm not you, but 43. You know what I mean?
Or 80.
Or 80, or like it's
Yeah.
never too late. And I think that is the goal of like once a month in your life, feeling that feeling is really important, I think, to feel alive. And again, you probably won't be good at the thing that you're feeling that feeling about. And that is the point.
Yeah. But I like this. Get hobbies where you're not good at them because you just, you know.
Yeah.
And I also think it's like, it's not a sprint. A sprint, it's a, what do you call it? It's a marathon.
Yeah.
Is that the?
Yeah.
You know, like I do feel like we're in it for the long haul, but it's also very short. So I like this check in with yourself. Let's do one more if we have it, and then we'll do we have any online questions? Not? Okay. Yeah.
So I love the book, and I just wanted to say, when was the first moment that you realized that perfectionism wasn't a personality trait and that it was something that women were conditioned to be? Because I always thought of myself as a perfectionist, and all my
Yeah.
friends thought of themselves as perfectionists, but we never looked at each other and said, oh, maybe this is something that we're conditioned to be by a society.
You know, I think when I started writing the book, right? I did like 2 years of research in writing this book because I was very resistant to writing it. Similar to how I'm resistant in starting organizations, like I think that there's a lot of great ideas and books, and or don't start one unless you have something new to say or something different to say. And so I too thought like, oh, you're just either a perfectionist or you're not. And it was really the book, a lot of Carol Dweck's teachings about this idea of like a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And I think that like I really believe that it's taught and it can be untaught. And I've seen it in my life, I've seen it in like people who've allowed me to be their guinea pigs, like, and I see it in like, right now we are like in the throes of a bravery revolution. We've sold almost 40,000 copies of this book in 4 weeks.
Wow.
Right?
That's awesome.
To me, it's more of like the conversations that are happening with people of like, I needed this, you're in my living room, like I do this, I feel this, I tried this, and it's like, it's happening, right? And that's when you really know that we're all not born perfectionists.
I love that. And it's a great
People are changing their lives, like
Yeah.
on a daily, like every moment, like, and it's making them happier, because that's the other thing, like, forget about the promotion. Like, this isn't a management. Don't read this book if you want a promotion. Read this book if you want to be happy.
This
right?
is, I was
It's
just
about
going to say,
joy.
what a great book club book for especially women out
Yeah.
there. I feel like even in the dinner we had, so much comes out that you're not even aware of or expecting. If you have a book club out there, it's a really good book. I'm going to end it there. I want to thank Reshma for making this happen. We're selling the book. If you want to have her sign